Imagine living in a city surrounded by a massive wall made entirely of shipping containers. Every single night, the people living there fear just one thing: that no one accidentally goes outside. Because right behind that giant wall stand billions of zombies, frozen in place, waiting for just one mistake. The moment someone opens the gate, they'll pour into the city. In the middle of this nightmare, a group of mercenaries takes on what seems like an impossible mission. They're planning to enter the zombies' territory and steal $200 million hidden inside the city. But they have to do it before the government wipes the entire place off the map with a nuclear strike. The story begins in a restricted military zone. A convoy is transporting a highly classified container under heavy security. At the same time, a newly married couple is celebrating on the highway, stopping their car to take pictures and enjoy the moment. Everything seems perfect, until everything changes in an instant. The groom gets so distracted that he completely loses focus on the road. Their car crashes straight into the military convoy. The impact is so powerful that the secret container falls onto the road and bursts open. That single accident becomes the beginning of a disaster. The commander immediately orders every soldier over the radio to get as far away from the container as possible, but before they can react, a terrifying zombie soldier climbs out of the container. Within seconds, it brutally wipes out the entire military squad. It doesn't look like an ordinary zombie. It's obvious this creature is the result of some secret government experiment. After infecting and killing the soldiers, the zombie heads straight toward a nearby city packed with millions of people. It doesn't take long before the infection spreads across the entire city. Dead bodies pile up everywhere, and the outbreak quickly spirals out of control. Realizing the situation can't be contained, the government sends in a team of elite mercenaries to fight the zombies and rescue anyone still alive. After days of bloodshed, only one safe area remains inside Las Vegas: the McCarran quarantine camp. This becomes the last secure place where humans can live. Life inside the camp continues almost as if nothing has happened. But the truth is far more terrifying. Just beyond the massive container wall stand billions of hungry zombies waiting for the perfect opportunity to attack. That's when we're introduced to Scott, a former mercenary who once fought on the front lines. But now, he's living an ordinary life, working as a chef at a small diner. One day, a billionaire named Hunter Tanaka visits him with an unbelievable offer. He tells Scott that $200 million is locked inside a vault in the middle of Las Vegas. Scott's job is simple: assemble his team, enter the zombie city, and bring the money back. The problem? The government plans to destroy the entire city with a nuclear strike in just 98 hours. Tanaka knows Scott still has connections with some of the best-trained mercenaries around. So, he promises that if Scott and his team recover the money, they'll receive $50 million as their share. At first, Scott refuses. He knows walking into a city full of zombies is practically a suicide mission. But after Tanaka shows him the vault's blueprint and the size of the reward, Scott can't stop thinking about it. For the next 2 days, the offer stays on his mind. Eventually, he realizes this could be the one opportunity that changes his life forever. Even if he spent the rest of his life working at the diner, he'd never earn that kind of money. So, Scott finally accepts the mission and begins tracking down his old teammates. But there's one more twist. Tanaka isn't the only person who knows about the fortune hidden inside Las Vegas. Word about the vault has already started spreading among ordinary people, and others have their eyes on the treasure too. At the quarantine camp, a girl named Kate had a friend named Gita who had already disappeared while trying to steal money from the same casino Tanaka had told Scott about. Another heartbreaking truth is also revealed. During the zombie outbreak, Scott lost his wife after she turned into a zombie, and Kate is actually Scott's own daughter. Ever since her mother's death, Kate has hated Scott and always blamed him for everything that happened to her mother. To make the mission possible, Scott begins gathering his old crew. The first person he recruits is his trusted partner, Maria. Next, he brings in Vander Rohe. His third recruit is Peters, an excellent helicopter pilot. After that comes Mikey Guzman, a YouTuber who treats killing zombies like a game. The final member is Ludwig Dieter, a professional safecracker capable of opening even the toughest vaults within minutes. Although Scott manages to assemble this fearless team, none of them knows what the real mission is or how dangerous it's going to be. A while later, everyone gathers together as Tanaka finally explains the plan. They must enter Las Vegas on foot, reach the casino, crack open the vault, collect the $200 million inside, then make it to the rooftop where Peters will repair an old helicopter so they can escape. At first, the team thinks the mission sounds surprisingly easy, but moments later they receive shocking news. The government has moved up the nuclear strike, leaving them with only 32 hours before all of Las Vegas is destroyed. Scott knows this mission is practically a suicide mission, so before leaving, he goes to see his daughter Kate one last time. Kate is still distant and bitter because of what happened to her mother. Even so, Scott asks for her help and promises that if they complete the mission successfully, he'll give her $15 million. Meanwhile, Kate's friend Gita and a few others have already sneaked out of the quarantine camp and headed toward the casino. The camp had a strict rule. Anyone who entered the zombie zone and returned would be thrown into jail unless they paid a huge amount of money. Gita desperately needed that money to free her family from the camp, so she risked her life. But the truth was, everyone who went after the casino's fortune had disappeared and never came back. Determined to save Gita, Kate insists on joining Scott's mission. Scott refuses at first because it's far too dangerous, but with time running out, he finally agrees on one condition, that she won't create any problems. Without wasting another second, the team heads toward the massive casino to steal the $200 million. Their guide is Lily, who knows the zombie territory better than anyone else. As they make their way through the completely ruined streets of Las Vegas, they suddenly come face to face with Valentine, a terrifying zombie tiger. The entire team freezes because there's no other way forward. Lily then makes a ruthless decision. A corrupt quarantine military officer named Cummings has joined the mission, and Lily hates him because he used to exploit helpless women in the camp. She decides to sacrifice him to the zombies so the rest of the team can pass safely. The zombies of Las Vegas have built their own kingdom, and Lily believes that anyone entering their territory alive must offer a human sacrifice in return. At first, the idea sounds unbelievable, but moments later, the alpha zombie appears, grabs Cummings, and drags him into the zombie kingdom. That proves Lily was telling the truth all along. Without looking back or feeling any regret, Scott's team quietly continues deeper into the city. Meanwhile, the zombie king and queen take Cummings to their throne and bite him, turning him into one of their own. As the team moves forward, they enter an abandoned hospital. The sight inside leaves everyone stunned. Hundreds of zombies are standing motionless against the walls in deep hibernation. They remain asleep unless someone makes a sound. Lily quietly warns everyone to stay completely silent and carefully move between them. Just then, Tanaka's selfish and manipulative associate Martin secretly betrays the team. He deliberately gives Chambers, one of the team's female fighters, the wrong direction. As a result, she gets separated from the group and ends up trapped right in the middle of the sleeping zombies. Fortunately, Chambers was an incredibly skilled fighter. Chambers fought with everything she had, taking down multiple zombies on her own just to stay alive and somehow managed to reach the exit. But Martin, the selfish coward, locked the door from the outside, trapping her in the middle of the zombie horde. With no way out, Chambers was torn apart, becoming the first casualty of the mission. In a world like this, no one had time to mourn because everyone knew death could come at any second. Staying alert, the team finally stepped inside the casino. Looking around the deserted building, Kate's heart sank. She quietly told Lily that her friend Gita was probably already dead. As they examined the casino's blueprint, they were shocked to discover that Tanaka had already sent another team on the exact same mission before them, and every single one of them had failed. Without wasting a second, Scott divided everyone into separate tasks. Scott and his daughter Kate headed off to restart the casino's main generator. Vanderhoof and Master Safecracker Ludwig made their way toward the main vault. Pilot Peters climbed to the rooftop to inspect the old helicopter and somehow get it running. Meanwhile, Martin and Lily began patrolling the surrounding area while Scott and Kate worked on the generator. The silence gave Scott the chance to finally talk to his daughter. With a heavy heart, he apologized for the day he was forced to kill her mother after she had turned into a zombie. That single moment was the reason Kate had hated her father ever since. Scott tried everything he could to make things right. He looked at her and said, "If it wasn't for you, I would have never risked my life on this suicide mission just for money." A few moments later, the generator roared back to life, restoring electricity throughout the casino. The lights turning on lifted everyone's spirits, especially Ludwig, who couldn't wait to prove his skills on the massive vault. But opening it wouldn't be easy. Before reaching the main safe, they first had to get through several deadly security traps. Meanwhile, while patrolling the area, Martin and Lily suddenly came face to face with the zombie queen. Instead of backing away, Martin came up with a twisted plan. He tricked the queen into a trap and brutally sliced her head off. The truth was, Martin had never come here for the money. Tanaka's real mission for him was to steal the head of an alpha zombie. That single betrayal unleashed complete chaos. When the zombie king realized his queen had disappeared, he immediately became restless. At the same time, it was revealed that Gita, the friend Kate had been desperately searching for, had actually been captured by the zombie king himself. Elsewhere, Peters was working non-stop on the rooftop, desperately repairing the old helicopter and trying to make it fly again before it was too late. After carefully bypassing every security system, Ludwig finally began cracking the vault, but then the entire team received devastating news. The government had changed the nuclear strike schedule once again. and now the missile would hit that very night. The mercenaries had only 90 minutes left to grab the money and escape Las Vegas alive. Just as Ludwig was concentrating on the incredibly complex lock, Scott and the others arrived. Their footsteps distracted him, and he snapped in frustration. "I need complete silence for the next 30 minutes. Don't even breathe." With unbelievable precision and patience, Ludwig kept working on the lock. Finally, after an intense struggle, the giant vault door swung open. The sight of hundreds of millions of dollars left the entire team speechless. But while everyone celebrated, an even bigger nightmare had already begun. The Zombie King found the headless body of his queen. The horrifying truth was that the Zombie Queen had been pregnant. The Zombie King had been desperately trying to protect both his wife and their unborn child. The moment he saw her lifeless body, he completely lost control. Filled with unimaginable rage, he let out a deafening roar and ordered his entire zombie army to hunt down Scott and his team. Meanwhile, Kate had never joined this mission for the money. Her only goal was to rescue her friend Gita. The moment she found an opportunity, she secretly slipped away from the team and headed alone toward the zombies' territory to search for her. The rest of Scott's team had no idea what had happened outside. They were still busy filling their bags with cash, but the second they saw millions of zombies charging toward them, everyone froze in panic. Vanderhoof and Ludwig had fallen behind the rest of the team. Just as they were looking for an escape route, the traitor Martin locked them inside a room. Smirking, he finally revealed the truth. Tanaka had never cared about the money. His real objective was the Zombie Queen's head, because it could be used to control every other zombie. At that exact moment, the enraged Zombie King burst into the room. Vanderhoof threw himself into the fight, taking on the massive Zombie King with nothing but his bare hands. It was a completely one-sided battle. The king was far stronger, and Vanderhoof was slowly being overwhelmed. Seeing his teammate on the verge of death, Ludwig made a desperate move to save him. Meanwhile, Martin was escaping with the Zombie Queen's head. But karma caught up with him almost instantly. When he opened his bag, he realized Lily had outsmarted him by secretly replacing the real head with a fake. Before Martin could even process what had happened, the terrifying zombie tiger attacked him and ripped him apart in seconds. Scott and Lily kept running toward the rooftop, but the zombie horde was endless, and they were rapidly running out of bullets. Guzman, the YouTuber, was knocked down while carrying the bag full of cash. After being bitten by several zombies and realizing there was no way out, he detonated a bomb, sacrificing himself in a massive explosion that sent bodies and millions of dollars flying through the air. At the same time, Kate gathered her courage and entered the zombies' main stronghold. There, she killed the same military officer who had been turned into a zombie and finally found Gita alive. Back on the rooftop, time was running out for the helicopter to take off. The Zombie King cornered Lily, but she immediately pointed her gun at the real head of the Zombie Queen, forcing him to stop. Risking her own life, Lily bought Scott enough time to escape. Just then, Scott learned that his daughter Kate was trapped inside the zombies' headquarters. With only 9 minutes left before the nuclear strike, he didn't hesitate for a second. Ignoring the danger, he jumped down to rescue her. Following the sound of gunfire, Scott reached Kate at the perfect moment and pulled her out of the Zombie King's territory. Together, they sprinted toward the rooftop and climbed into the helicopter that Peters had finally managed to repair. But the Zombie King wasn't ready to let them escape. As the helicopter finally lifted off, the Zombie King made one last desperate leap and landed right on it. A brutal hand-to-hand fight broke out between Scott and the Zombie King inside the helicopter. At that exact moment, the government dropped the nuclear bomb on Las Vegas. A massive explosion ripped through the city, and the shockwaves slammed into the helicopter, sending it crashing miles away from the blast zone. When Kate finally opened her eyes, she realized she had somehow survived. But the first thing she saw was Peter's lifeless body, and her heart shattered. Her pain only grew worse when she found Scott lying beside her, covered in blood. Kate broke down in tears. For years, she had blamed her father for her mother's death and treated him with nothing but hatred. Now she realized how wrong she had been. Scott had no chance of surviving. During the fight, the Zombie King had bitten him, and the infection was already spreading through his body. With his final breaths, Scott handed Kate his share of the money and whispered, "Use this to free Gita's children from the quarantine camp." Moments later, Scott took his last breath. Through tears, Kate said goodbye to her father and walked away, carrying both his sacrifice and his final wish. But the story wasn't over yet. No one could have imagined that Vanderhoof, who had been trapped inside the vault, actually survived the nuclear blast. Not only did he make it out alive, but he also escaped with millions of dollars from the vault. Thinking he had beaten fate, Vanderhoof celebrated by renting a private jet and finally living the luxurious life he had always dreamed of. But in his excitement, he forgot one terrifying detail. While looking into the bathroom mirror during the flight, he noticed a bite mark on his body. The wound he received while fighting the Zombie King had infected him as well. A horrifying smile slowly spread across his face. He realized he was unknowingly carrying the deadly zombie virus to Mexico on the very flight he was traveling on. The nightmare wasn't over. It was only beginning again, in another country.